What's going on YouTube? It's Tej back again with another video, and today we're talking about the New Orleans Saints in our season preview series, and hopefully you all enjoyed today's video. If you do, be sure to hit that like button. It really would help me out a ton. And if you're new around here, want to see more of the series, more football content in general, just hit that big red subscribe button. Tell me what you think about the Saints down below in the comments section. You know, how many wins you think they come away with? How do you feel about Dennis Allen as the head coach? Who are some X factors? What are some games you're looking forward to watching? I'd love to have your thoughts, and I respond to just about every comment. So let's talk about New Orleans down below in the comments section. So if you're new to the series, welcome to it. Happy to have you. Definitely go back, check out some of our previous videos we've already made. Maybe your favorite teams in there, some division rivals, or you just want to talk more football with us, which we'd love to have you. So let's go ahead and start talking about win range, projected win totals. So 9-11. I'm actually kind of high on the Saints this year. You know, right around this time last year, probably I had to go back and check the video to know for sure. But yeah, I was saying 6 or 7 wins. I was pretty low on New Orleans, but definitely a lot more optimistic. I got them at 10-7. I may even nudge them another win once to do my updated season record predictions, but I think this is a good team, and now I'm going to talk about the entire roster, position group by position group, kind of give you a feel on why I like this team so much. Jameis Winston, every time I get excited about him, he lets me down in some fashion, so I have to temper my expectations a little bit. But he's just naturally a fun player to watch because 5 touchdowns, no picks 1 week, no touchdowns, 3 picks the next week. It's the ultimate lottery ticket. But this year, he's the ultimate lottery ticket, and he's got Michael Thomas back and healthy and looking good. Chris Olave. Jarvis Landry. I don't want to talk about that yet because we'll talk about the wide receivers. But he's a lottery ticket, but he has toys to play with too. So this could be the year maybe he does put it all together. And especially when think about early last year when we did get to see him out there, looked like the decision making was a little more crisp. Maybe a little bit right before the injury, you start to see old school Jameis. But for a game or two that might pop out. But man, if he's just improved as a processor and a decision maker, but still has all of his passing talent and those weapons around him. That's why, year over year, people get excited about Jameis Winston. I'm just creating this path for him to walk down, but he's got to be able to do that. So there's something to be excited about there. But again, you have to tip your expectations with Jameis. Alvin Kamara is one of the best running backs in football. There's not a whole lot needs to be said there. He's also an awesome weapon in the pass game. The offensive line, outside of, we'll talk about James Hurst, Trevor Penning later on, but outside of that tackle battle, that offensive line's a really solid unit. Maybe Andrews Pete's a little overrated at left guard, but we live in a time in the NFL where good guard play is pretty short, so pretty scarce. So, Pete definitely gets the job done. I'm certainly not saying he's bad. And then let's talk about these wide receivers. Michael Thomas, back from injury, and every training camp reporter is saying he's looking great. So, take it with a grain of salt, buy into that how much you normally do, but that's good news to hear. Chris Olave, you've been seeing clips. He's getting behind the secondary. Him and Michael Thomas are great route runners, but just at completely different points of the field. Where you love Michael Thomas in that intermediate and underneath game, Chris Olave is the complete opposite. Let that dude be somebody who can get open, create big plays, and build that chemistry between him and Jameis, who has a howitzer. And then Jarvis Landry, who's made a living off of while not being a good athlete, working the underneath game, solid hands, good yak weapon. It's just such a nice, well-rounded unit. There's no real weakness that stands out there. Also, I think Adam Troutman, maybe this is the year he becomes a nice sleeper pick in fantasy at the tight end spot. Certainly crossing my fingers there. Then you switch over to the defense, and where a year ago I was saying, no Trey Hendrickson. I may think he doesn't deserve the money from Cincy. I was wrong there. Happy to admit that. But also, this is just an organization that is prioritized having 3 pass rushers. So it's going to take Peyton Turner stepping up, and obviously didn't see a whole lot of him last year, but Cam Jordan and Marcus Davenport, one of the best duos in football. They were awesome. You can kind of scheme up pressure from elsewhere, but I'm still hoping that even with the injury, the athleticism still shows for Peyton Turner, and that was the real selling point coming into the 2021 draft for him. So kind of like Davenport, the Saints have an eye potentially for those raw edges that you need to polish, but if it pans out, it pans out, and then they have that third pass rusher. The linebacking unit, Demario Davis is just aging like fine wine, getting better year over year. You add Pete Warner going into year 2, and actually was pretty good. Thought it was a little bit of a reach when the Saints initially made that pick, but really solid player so far early in his career coming out of Ohio State, and pairing him up with Demario Davis can only make him better, right? Then you get to the secondary, and I was concerned about Paulson Adebo being a starter last year. This is a team that traded Bradley Roby pretty early on. Marshawn Lattimore, no concerns there. Sometimes he has off games, but I think at his peak, this dude is an absolute CB1 and one of the most talented guys at the position. So I really don't worry about Marshawn Lattimore. And Paulson Adebo now going to year 2, I'm feeling a little bit more confident how he fits in that Dennis Allen defense, but still That's going to take some proving for me to fully buy into New Orleans. Once we get into the season, I'll be able to see that. And then the safety group, yeah, you lose Marcus Williams, who's awesome as a true deep free safety, but you signed a Tyrann Mathieu, who may be the best safety in football, and you got him at a lower cap point, so that's unbelievable. And he gets to come home, so jersey sales, I'm sure, are through the roof. Marcus May. Nice hybrid safety. You can play him deep. You can play him in the box. Just a nice football player. One of the better parts of the Jets the last couple of years. And you still have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, this new age nickel corner, strong safety hybrid that the NFL is starting to covet, and even college, like kind of star backer basically for like Alabama or Georgia. Not calling Chauncey Gardner-Johnson that necessarily, but that position is becoming so impactful on the field, both college and the NFL level. And Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, one of the best, not only trash talkers, but nickel and box players that the NFL has. So there's a whole lot to like about the roster. Where the concern comes in is, dude, if they have any injuries, then it's going to be thin. Like any injuries across the offensive line, I have some serious question marks about how they handle that. Also, speaking of the offensive line, Ryan Ramczyk, yes. Anytime I don't name a star player, somebody wants to tell me I don't know the roster, Ryan Ramczyk's probably the best right tackle in football. So moving on now. At linebacker, if Demario Davis goes down, yikes. If Marshawn Lattimore gets hurt, I like Paulson Adebo going into year 2, but again, still some question marks, so that could really hurt. And even if Tyrann Mathieu goes down, I like Marcus May, but then who's that other safety? And are you having to replace that with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson? Then who's playing the nickel? So it's this team that has a lot of good players and solid talent, but if one player gets hurt, it's just watching the dominoes fall, and I'll have to gauge and see how this team counters that, and also we'll have to see the severity of the injury, right? Like if it's week 1, torn ACL, down goes Demario Davis, and okay, or Cam Jordan or something like that. So hopefully none of that happens, because otherwise this is going to be a really, really fun Saints team to watch. Realistic goal, reach goal, they are what they sound like. I'm trying to do something a little different here so you guys aren't hearing the same thing and having these videos go stale, excuse me. The Saints totally could have a top 10 offense and defense. Again, I just laid out the roster for you. You can see how excited I am, and also, just Dennis Allen, one of the best defensive play callers we have in the NFL right now. And, Pete Carmichael might not be Sean Payton, but he's probably going to be running the same offense, right? Like, that seems to be the narrative right now. Now, there's something to be said. Todd Downing wasn't as good as running that offense in Tennessee as Arthur Smith was, because it's his offense. He knew when to, go to a certain play. He had a better, feel for it in game. So Pete Carmichael will have some hurdles to jump over there, but with some time, I think that could come along. And, he's been the OC for so long. You got to think some of that is already habit for him. But that, on top of the talent, this team totally could be a top 5 offense and defense. And then the reach goal, steal the NFC South. And, the big caveat is the Bucs are have to be disappointing this year, but you're already starting to see the injuries rack up, especially on the interior of the offensive line. They dealt with corner injuries last year. Mike Evans is going to battle some stuff throughout the year. Chris Godwin's coming off. I'm not saying it's going to happen, and I certainly don't want injuries to happen, but you could see where the roster unravels in Tampa Bay. Just enough to take them from a 13-win team to maybe 11. And the Saints become a 12-win team because of it. And, they take down Tampa Bay a couple times in the regular season. That's a big difference maker there, and how the records change maybe. The Saints have had a lot of success against the Bucs in the regular season anyway. So that's totally plausible. Again, don't think it's high percentage, but I totally think it's in the realm of possibilities. And then that, or be the top wildcard seed, which, that's certainly more obtainable, but you're still talking about having a higher seed than the Rams or the 49ers or the Cardinals, whoever that team outside not winning the division in the NFC West is, whoever the best of those group out of that group is. But the NFC North could be sneaky. Like the Vikings, Kevin O'Connell could totally turn that ship around, and maybe they're a 12-win team. So there's some talent there, primarily from the NFC West, but there's still some other teams where you wouldn't be surprised if they're an 11, 12-win team. And if the Saints are the 5 seed, the number 1 wild card, that would be really impressive. And, it's not the division title, but next best thing. So moving on to some X factors here. I can't preface this enough. Not superstars. Like Michael Thomas should return from injury, and hopefully he's a stud. Tyrann Mathieu might be the best safety in football. Marshall Lattimore, I sung his praises earlier. These guys aren't X factors. They're good players. And that's not to say these other players aren't, but these are guys who have a huge role ahead of them, and they're kind of question marks now. There's unknown value. Are they going to supersede what came before? Are they going to be more than what we expect, going into the season? Because that could take this, Saints team to an 11, 12-win mark. Or they fall short, disappoint. They're not somebody who's going to be sticking as a starter for long term. And that's what takes the Saints down to maybe a 9-win team. So hopefully I explained that pretty well, but these are true 50-50 players in my eyes. So James Hurst, Trevor Penning, that's self-explanatory. It's a left tackle spot, Jameis Winston's blind side. Right now it feels like Hurst has got the leg up on Penning, but New Orleans is going to give him every chance to get that job as a first-round pick. So definitely the athleticism and the strength is there for Penning. Really mean run blocker, coming from a smaller school, but like the physicality is 100% there. Like there was never a concern about that in the draft process. It just comes out of the technique, and he's going to need to be coached up in pass protection. So really only I think time and work ethic can get him there, and that's just not something I can gauge on because I'm not in New Orleans right now. But Hurst makes sense. He's been a really solid swing tackle, so there's nothing to say that Hurst couldn't call it fill in, but 4 to 6 games, and then Penning maybe is ready to step in as a starter. So it could be a split between the two, or maybe Hurst is just a solid player and they have him start this year, and then it's Penning's job moving forward. So a lot of ways this could play out, but that's a big spot. It's a weak link area on the offensive line. It's a weak link sport. So if that's the trouble area, especially at left tackle, that could totally go sideways and curtail how good this offense could be. Pete Werner talked about him early on. Going into year 2, him and Paulson Adebo as well. These two second-year players have starting positions as, an off-ball linebacker and the number 2 outside corner, respectively. So how do they, handle that? How much better do they look this year versus last year? So if they look about the same, that's, you never want to see that. If you're staying the same, you're really getting worse. So hopefully there's a step forward and maybe even a little bit more considering they're young and, early on the potential cycle, if you want to call it that. There's room for growth. And they're also 2 important players for the long-term, picture. Lattimore is young and, he's got his money or whatever, but still you're going to need another outside corner. So can Adebo be the guy who sticks there? And for Pete Werner, not only a potential starting linebacking spot, but you could be the guy who replaces Demario Davis, who's become one of the best, if not the best, off-ball linebacker, at least in the NFC, maybe, talk about Darius Leonard with the Colts, Fred Warner in San Francisco, and then Demario Davis is probably number 3. So one of, in some people's eyes, maybe the best off-ball linebacker. So that's a big role for Pete Werner to try to step into moving on in his career. So how do they stick? How much better do they look in year 2? Of course, they got to be X factors. So games to watch. No division games here. Yes, Saints, Bucks. I would call that a game to watch for sure. Week 4 against Minnesota. This game's in London. That adds just another layer of intrigue in here. But 2 teams that could be competing for the NFC wildcard positioning or just a spot in general. But 2 teams that, man, I love the firepower. And this game is at 9:30, and I just pray I get to start that Sunday with absolute fireworks going off. Big plays from Justin Jefferson. Michael Thomas is catching a slant in the end zone. Chris Olave is getting behind the side. Whatever it ends up being, I just want that to be a fun offensive game. But that being said, I also think it's the team the Saints are at least a little bit more of a complete team. I have some question marks about the Vikings defense. So certainly a winnable game there for New Orleans. Week 12 against the 49ers again. Same thing with the Eagles. I'll go ahead and knock this one out of the way. Playoff positioning, whether it's division title, maybe division crown, or wild card implications. Of course, all 3 of these NFC opponents loom large in that department. But for the 49ers, how does this New Orleans run defense? That's just something, I have to ask because you're talking about Demario Davis being in his 30s and, David Onyemata, maybe he could be in for a down. I just want to see how that run defense holds up. It's been such a big strength for the Saints. They've been known. That's kind of been a huge calling card on that side of the ball, that run defense. So is it there? And, how does it look against a scheme that is the best in the game right now and as efficient as it could possibly be? So that also, I'm kind of interested how the Saints, such a good defense, handle Trey Lance and his dual threat ability. So kind of just a fun game. I don't really talk about defense a lot in these games to watch, but I'd really love to see how New Orleans defense, handles the 49ers there in week 12. Moving on to week 17 at the Philadelphia Eagles. So kind of like the 49ers game, it's also interesting to see how this team handles being on the road, right? That's kind of where coaching comes in. Are you guys prepared? Or you come out flat? So that's a part of it. But I'm also a big fan of what the Eagles have done this offseason. And I was even thinking about it on a drive I was on today. And I was like, dude, man, I totally see where this team can win 12, maybe even 13 games. I'm just really high on the Eagles. Such a well-balanced roster. And Jalen Hurts has done nothing but get better. So who's to say you can't take at least a half step forward? So this could be a game where these 2 teams, as good as it gets in the NFC. So that's fun there. And again, New Orleans run defense against such a strength with the Eagles is a little different. It's different than how the 49ers do it, but it's still a good run game. This is also a fun battle between like Darius Slay, James Bradbury, really solid corner duo against Michael Thomas, Chris Olave. So who wins that battle on the perimeter? That is just kind of intriguing as well. Last point, Saints, one of the best offensive lines. Eagles, one of the best pass rushers, one of the best defensive lines. And the same could be said about the other side of the ball, right? Like Cam Jordan, Marcus Davenport versus Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson. Like, what an awesome battle on the edge. David Onyemata against Jason Kelsey, or Cam Jurgens, even if there's an injury. He's looked good this preseason. I just want to shout him out there. Hopefully Kelsey's playing. But these two teams have such similar strengths. I just kind of want to see who wins that, boxing match in those areas and who can come out. And it's late in the year, playoff implications again. So a lot of intrigue there for me in that Saints-Eagles matchup week 17. But those are my games to watch, and that is going to do it for my New Orleans Saints season preview video. Tell me what you think about this team down below in the comment section. How many wins do you think they come away with? Who are some X factors, and what are some games you're looking forward to watching New Orleans play this year? I respond to just about every comment, so let's go ahead and talk about the Saints down below. Hopefully you all enjoyed today's video. If you did, be sure to hit that like button. It really would help me out a ton. If you're new around here, want to see more football content, more of this series, just hit that big red subscribe button. That's going to do it for me. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, my name is Tej. I'm signing off.